or she is happy to take questions, I should say.
Let's start with Stephen John from CNN.
Thank you, Stephen John with CNN. So, Congressman Smith, I think I read in your remarks and statements, you raised quite a few issues that are U.S. priorities with the Chinese, including fentanyl and rare earths. But I don't know if you noticed, in their readout about the phone call between the two presidents last Friday, they did not mention fentanyl. They did not mention rare earth. So that seems to indicate quite a different list of priorities. So my questions to you is how much do you think a visit like yours and your conversations could move the needle on those issues, especially when it comes to fentanyl and rare earths? And what are some of their main concerns or barriers for such cooperation as they have mentioned to you? And related to this, there is some analysts saying the Chinese have increasingly feel they hold the upper hand in dealing with the U.S. and all those issues. Did you get a sense of that? And how much of that do you think is them taking advantage of a polarized political environment in the U.S.? Thank you.
That's a lot of questions in there. If I miss one of them, feel free to remind me. Look, but I mean, the basic gist of the whole question, it sort of gets at the core problem. There's a lot of misunderstandings on both sides. If you sat down with Chinese leadership and asked them, okay, what are the issues? Where are you at? Where is the U.S. at? What's most important? What's least important? You would absolutely get a different set than if you sat down with the United States leaders and asked that same question. It's the basic of negotiations. As chair of the Armed Services Committee, I negotiated 4 different defense bills on 100 different issues. And many of those conversations started with, person here, person there. And that's where you start. And then you work towards each other. I've worked on legislation. I've worked on local issues. It's the same thing. You have to be willing to start the process of saying, okay, this is where I'm coming from. Where are you coming from? And we're not even at that point yet. We're still sort of talking past each other. So I think the things your question brings up are the things that we're here to try and solve and to have that conversation. This is what's important to us. China has things that are important to them. And like I said, I don't presume that there's some, okay, snap our fingers and we'll automatically resolve this. But I know how this process starts. And I have seen, as the diplomats here and my colleagues have seen as well, many things that seemed intractable and impossible, that once you actually started talking from the standpoint of let's try and resolve this, it is unbelievable what you can accomplish when you do that. And I think that's what China and the U.S. needs to do, because you pointed out some of the differences. We need to, I guess the joke is not necessarily get on the same page, but at least get in the same book as a starting point.
Janice McIntyre from
sorry, let me
Sure, go
add
ahead.
one thing to that. You mentioned the president's call with President Xi. They had a great call. They're looking forward to getting together, as President Trump said, potentially in the near future, but certainly next year early. These topics you bring up are actively being negotiated now. We just got back from Madrid, and you see the readout on that. We talked to Minister He Lefeng this week about that. So there's ongoing conversation. I would say that the relationship between President Xi and President Trump is actually very good and very encouraging right now.